from a legal standpoint, oh, let me back up. In the feminist community, the whole false rape accusations thing is a huge hot topic as far as when they're attacking the men's rights community. And there seems to have been, recent in the past few years, different definitions for what is rape and what is consent. And so the feminist community has started to say that we need to teach women, and also men, that consent is a resounding, enthusiastic yes. You have to say it. And they're trying to train people now to say yes before having sex. So from a legal standpoint, what constitutes consent and rape?
Yeah. To me, suggesting that one has to verbally say yes or it's rape is so preposterous that the consequence of that would mean the vast majority of us should be in jail. I think back, I'm trying to remember times when I had sex when my girlfriend actually said the word yes, or when I actually said the word yes. Consent usually with sex comes in your body language, with your going along with the foreplay, with your going along with the kissing and everything else, and not resisting or even saying no, but actually doing the things that would be welcoming of sex when it's coming up to that. I don't agree at all that it has to be verbalized, but if it does, then it should apply both ways. So that means men are raped too when they don't say yes. And I don't hear the feminist movement saying that. But as far as what constitutes consent, I really think it comes down to what I just said. It comes down to what your actions are and what messages you convey when things are leading up to sex. If you're kissing and then you take your clothes off and then you don't resist or say no or show any signs that you don't want it at all, I think that you have consented to it. Once you say no or resist in some way, I think that we do. The message that no means no is important. Even if statistics have shown that a lot of women say they say no, but they don't really mean it, we still have to take no for no. Unless, for instance, you're in a relationship where you have a certain understanding. Some people like role-playing or things like that where no might not mean no, but it has to be an understanding. I still think that we need to take no for no. But I don't agree at all with this idea that if you don't say yes, then it's rape. Like I said, otherwise the vast majority of us, both men and women, should be in jail. And the same with alcohol. If you're drinking alcohol to a point where you're incapacitated and knocked out, or obviously have no idea what's going on, and another person takes advantage of that sexually, yes, I would call that rape. But if you just get drunk and have sex, I don't find that rape. And that's one where, again, I think if you're going to say that that's rape, then there's a lot of women who should be in jail too. Lots of times people get drunk together and have sex. I've been drunk and had sex when my girlfriend wasn't, and then should she be in jail? I don't think that. I think that's ridiculous. But yeah, there needs to be some awareness about the fact that just because someone might have been drunk and might have shown signs of like kissing or something and then conked out, that doesn't mean you can do whatever you want to them while they're conked out. You know, that's not consent. So we need that kind of awareness too, but the dialogue needs to be balanced and not one where you're going to be shouted down and screamed at and called names when you take the men's rights position. And the media needs to learn what our message really is and not spread myths about what we're saying. In no way are we justifying rape, but there is controversy about how it's defined and what it is. And I believe rape, I think most people would agree rape comes in degrees as well. There's some rapes that are much worse. There's statutory rape. And if you look at statutory rape, you find that there are a lot of female perpetrators and there are a lot of male victims, especially in the juvenile detention facilities, where there are a lot of relationships between the female guards and male inmates. In fact, the Department of Justice has said that the majority of those are male-female, probably just because there are far more males. 90% of the inmates are male. But that is a form of rape. It's statutory rape. Maybe it's a lesser degree, but it's still statutory rape, and we need to consider that in our definitions. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, there's been so much back and forth conversation. I mean, usually I think the best way to talk about this issue and this debate is to look at specific cases. And the Steubenville case, are you familiar with that one? No,
unless I hear the story, maybe.
It was a girl, I think she was 16, and the guys were 17. The guys were star football players and kind of the heroes of the town. And they were having some kind of after football party, and the girl got drunk to the point of passing out, and a few boys videotaped raping her. And,
yeah.
And the media reaction was very mixed. I mean, obviously the feminist community was saying, she was raped, and then we also had on Fox News them saying, poor boys that had their scholarships taken away from them because of this case and accusations and all this. So there was a lot of back and forth, but there was also a lot of victim blaming, what feminists call victim blaming.
Yeah.
So some people would say, well, what was she wearing? What did she tweet before she went out that night? What was she thinking, drinking that much? She's underage. So victim blaming is a part of what is considered rape culture in the feminist community. Do you believe that there is a rape culture?
I think the term rape culture is very exaggerated. I do think there is a problem of rape. But I think when we talk about rape culture, that's when we create these environments where anyone who talks about false accusations gets shouted down. We need to remember that the falsely accused are victims too. And when you downplay them, you are victim blaming. That's a problem too. And when you create environments like you had at Duke, where they were outside those guys' homes banging on drums and shouting things and chanting, and they couldn't even go to their own homes, that is not acceptable. That is a form of victim blaming. The story that you just told me about, I do remember it now. I didn't know it by name. That is one where initially I didn't take a position, but I felt we need to be cautious that we don't have another Duke situation, that we wait and see what the evidence is. And it turned out, apparently, that they had sex with her or raped her while she was passed out. And I don't find that acceptable. I do consider that rape. I do want to say, though, that asking what she tweeted and things like that aren't necessarily automatically looking to blame her. They can be ways to gather evidence. For instance, what was she planning to do that night? Was she telling them that she wanted to do something of that nature? I think we need to be very careful. It may be that there was victim blaming, maybe, but I'm just saying we need to also realize sometimes we ask these questions to learn. Just as an example, this case in Italy that came out about 15 or 10 years ago where a judge didn't believe a woman was raped because she was wearing jeans, and now you have this thing called Denim Day that feminists do. They wear denim on a certain day of the year because it's to raise awareness, and they accuse that judge of victim blaming. I haven't researched that, but I often wonder, was the judge just using the fact that she's wearing jeans not to say she deserved to be raped or that she couldn't be raped, but simply as one among many other factors of evidence as to whether she was? Because you're looking at the timing of everything, and maybe the jeans were harder to take off, and when you're looking at the timing, maybe the jeans played an evidentiary role. I happen to think that might have been what it was, but creating Denim Day and misstating what the judge said would work, and so I don't know this for sure, but I wonder it. This is what I mean by the reactionism that we have. Sometimes we shout people down and assume that they're victim blaming before when they may not be. There was a case, I believe, in Orange County where a college a college girl had sex with a group of boys, had consensual group sex with them, and it was videotaped. And during the group sex, she was encouraging it and, in fact, orchestrating it, telling them what to do. And afterwards, she claimed she was raped. And the first reaction, again, was who would believe that she would go and consensually have sex with all these guys? And it wasn't until they showed that video that these guys were facing jail. It wasn't until they showed that video that they were spared. Now, her Twitter posts could have played a role, for instance, in that. Maybe she might have said what she planned to do. And that's what I mean by, I think we should be cautious that just because we're looking at her Twitter posts don't automatically mean that we're gonna blame her. We need to be very cautious. Victim blaming goes both ways. Falsely accused people are victims too. And we need to be cautious about it. And I don't think that's what we have. We have some people who are victim blaming. It's true. We have people who are reactionary in the opposite direction. But both sides need to calm down, and there needs to be an open dialogue, an honest dialogue about these things that's intelligent, rather than mobbing people and making death threats and calling names, which I think is what we have right now, mostly.
Why are false accusers not prosecuted?
Yeah. I believe that one of the main reasons false accusers are not prosecuted is that it's hard to prove a false accusation. But another reason is that the feminist movement doesn't want them prosecuted because they believe, their argument is that it will make it harder for real victims to come forward. And another position that some have put forth is that it actually hurts the falsely accused, because if you prosecute false accusers, then they're less likely to recant. Those are the reasons I believe, but I don't think that those reasons are really justified. The issue about recanting is something to think about, I would say, but arguing that it would make it harder for real victims to come forward, I don't think that's a fair argument at all, because falsely accused people are real victims. And so by considering these victims bigger victims than these, I think we're pitting victims against each other. I know it's hard. Sometimes these issues are very hard to sort out. But not prosecuting false accusers sends the message that you'll get away with it no matter what. Go ahead and do it. First of all, it's very hard to prove you did it, and even if we find out, we're not going to prosecute you. I think that's a terrible message to send. Prosecuting false accusations is a big issue in the men's rights movement, a very big one. And I think that is one where the general public would agree that false accusers should be prosecuted. But there are politics going on behind the scenes that resist that. I think eventually it might change as more of these high-profile cases like Brian Banks come around, and you bring a lot of mainstream people who aren't men's rights activists or feminists realizing that this is happening more than we're told, for instance. A lot of these guys don't get into the media. And so once we start realizing that, maybe it'll change. I don't know.